Hello， 大家，我们这期节目比较特别一点，因为我们邀请到了一个重量级来宾 ，Speak 的 Co-founder CTO Andrew Hsu。Speak 我觉得可以说是这波生成式 AI 浪潮之下最成功的 B2C 新创之一。然后 Andrew 也是一个非常了不起的人物，16岁就到史丹佛念博士，19岁辍学参加 Thiel Fellowship， 然后之后潜心研究 AI， 创立 Speak， 并把它经营到现在的规模。整个访谈我们非常聚焦在创业跟 AI 的话题，有聊到 Speak 创业的故事，最新的 AI 技术， AI 公司的创业策略，然后还有公司内部的 AI 应用等等。我个人觉得非常精彩，对创业或是 AI 感兴趣的人非常值得一听。在接下来这段广告时间之后，我们就立刻进入访谈，希望大家会喜欢。本期节目由台湾创新技术博览会赞助播出。那我相信各位科技浪的听众应该跟我一样，很喜欢新科技、新奇的技术吧？那今天呢，就要跟大家介绍这个台湾创新技术博览会，是个你绝对不能错过的一个展览哦。这个展览汇集了国内外企业与学术机构的最新科研成果，涵盖的范围从 AI、半导体到量子科技、永续科技都有。展览主要分成3馆1区，我们先说第一个创新经济馆，这里聚焦 AI 在半导体、资安和制造等领域的应用，展示了台湾产业升级的实际案例，像是用 AI 分析多维度数据，快速侦测资安问题，或是用无人机和 AI 热影像分析识别太阳能板缺陷，提高维护效率等等。那接下来是未来科技馆，它强调了未来3到10年的关键突破，特别有像是智慧机器人、量子科技和 AI 应用体验专区，你会看到像是人形机器人物流机器人等等的技术。接下来是智慧永续馆，它有分成智慧创新、韧性赋能和循环永续3个大主题，展出约100项技术，你会看到像是利用 AI 光谱分析提升塑料回收精准度，或者是用 AI 医疗机器人来协助护理工作节省时间。那以上是3馆的部分，接下来1区的部分呢，就是这个发明竞赛区，它集结了国内外超过500件的作品，涵盖半导体、资通讯和绿能等领域，角逐铂金奖。国内企业跟学术机构，像是国家原子能科技研究院中华电信、台电、中央大学和北科大都有参加。那除此之外，创博会还要展出40件荣获113年国家发明创作奖得奖技术的台湾专利超级展，绝对不能错过。那你如果想要和国内外的专家和企业代表直接交流，了解最新技术和讨论技术合作，你绝对可以来创新技术博览会逛逛。那展期呢是10月16号到18号，也就是下礼拜的4到6，地点就在台北世贸一馆，可以完全免费入场，但是先登记的话，你就可以享有快速入场服务。所以有兴趣的朋友呢，欢迎点击本集资讯栏的连结先登记。本集业配就到这边结束，谢谢台湾创新技术博览会的赞助。Okay, Andrew, so you have a very unique experience, which is that you were in the Thiel Fellowship when you were in your early 20s.
Yeah, the first class of that.
The first class of that, wow.
In 2011, so that's been a while ago at this point, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Thiel Fellowship is basically a program that grants young people in their 20s $100,000 for them to get out of school and pursue their dream, basically.
Yeah.
And you're in the first class. How was that?
So, it's 2025 now, so there's been 14 years.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
It's
oh my God.
Time ago.
That makes me feel old. But I don't know if it's still perceived as a controversial thing, but when Peter Thiel first announced it, it was like a very, very controversial thing. And he had his whole thesis around how essentially the university system was essentially credentialism. And, he had this sort of intentionally provocative idea to pay young people to not go to school, and we'll just give them each $100,000 and let them do literally anything they wanted. There were, like in the first few years, very few restrictions on what you could do with the money. Yeah. And you didn't even have to be working on a startup. You could be doing research or like any crazy thing. And there were a lot of crazy ideas sort of like floating around. But I think that the timing of it was really good for me because I was already considering dropping out of grad school. Like at the time I was doing a PhD in neuroscience at Stanford and sort of thinking about if academia was really the right path. And then the fellowship was announced and it really felt like the stars aligned a little bit and the timing was really good. So that was kind of my entry into startup world, if you will.
Yeah. I see. And then did you just go out and start to speak, or was there any other ventures?
There were. So I had another company at the time. And I didn't start Speak until sort of early, late 2016, early 2017.
Okay.
So there were sort of several years there of, a few field startups, a bunch of sort of research that I was doing as well, sort of leading up to Speak.
Okay, I see. So I think a lot of my listeners, they definitely know Speak.
Yeah.
But you just mentioned Speak was started in 2016. I bet a lot of them only get to know Speak in the past 1 year or two or something. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, how Speak got started and what was the mission back then?
Yeah. So my co-founder and I were thinking about what we wanted to do with our lives and our careers. We were really good friends, roommates at the time. And I think we both knew that AI would be the defining technology of the future. And I mean, in hindsight now, that turned out to be a pretty good prediction.
Yep.
But back in 2015 or so, this was when deep learning was starting to come back and show signs of life. And deep speech, the speech recognition model, first came out. And it was kind of the transition from more traditional, like older ML pipelines for speech recognition to end-to-end deep learn pipelines. And we basically spent a year and a half, like a year or so, just diving really deep into machine learning, into deep learning. And it was so much fun. Like it was a little bit of a self-directed sabbatical, if you will, where we wrote a bunch of code, trained models, snuck into classes at Berkeley and Stanford, learned about reinforcement learning, all of that. And basically out of that came the idea for Speak, which was fundamentally around, in 5 or 10 years, I felt like we would see superhuman speech models and language models. We were just very convinced that the trend was going like this for both speech and text. And this would have enormous effects on the types of products that we could build. And I think that was always just something we were absolutely convinced about. And that was kind of the guiding light, if you will, like the North Star vision, even when things weren't quite working with the company in the first few years.
Yeah. I think that's super interesting that you guys had this strong conviction that, AI is going to work out.
We would have quit otherwise because it was really, 2 to 3 years where we tried a lot of different specific versions of the product of the like early Speak app. And we learned a lot. Nothing was really working. We relaunched a few times. And then finally, basically in late 2019 or so, we decided to really fully redesign the app. We put together a lot of what we had learned in various markets. We decided to focus only on teaching English in South Korea. So it was a super specific thing that we decided to build. And that was really what started working, which is pretty cool.
I see. I want to go back to the, bet on AI a little bit. Because it's really interesting that you said back then nothing was working. But you guys were willing to bet on this. So was there like a sign, maybe like a paper that you guys read or maybe someone you guys talked to that lead to this kind of strong conviction?
Yeah, I would say during the sabbatical that I mentioned, we talked with a lot of experts. We spent a lot of time, really making sure we understood at the 1 foot level, at the ground level, how these models worked. We trained models ourselves. We trained at the time, state-of-the-art accent classifier. That was more of a toy project, but I think it inspired the eventual Speak idea. I think it was that in combination with this overall industry trend where it really felt like deep learning was starting to work in some domains. We were more focused on speech recognition initially. This was many years before, LLMs. This was right before the original Transformer paper came out.
Yeah.
And the first version of the app that worked was pretty different from the app today, which is very LLM infused. It was much more like a supplemental speaking practice tool using speech recognition where you could speak into the app, but it was a pretty sort of simple rote experience, but it was an outlet to speak. And that was what a lot of people in South Korea wanted. That started growing. That's how we got to a few million ARR.
I see. I heard you guys also talked to Andre Kaparthi back then.
Yeah. Back then, he was already starting to become famous for a lot of his like teaching content on machine learning. So that's how we sort of met him originally and consumed a lot of his content. And he basically was one of the sort of experts that we consulted with that helped us sort of understand what path to take during this sabbatical. So that, that was awesome. Obviously now he's, super, super famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
So fast forward to 2022, Whisper came out.
That's right.
You guys didn't have to train your own models anymore. Something really good worked out of the box. And also at the end of 2022, ChatGPT came out. What was that moment like for you guys?
Well, that was the moment that we predicted.
Yeah,
I think how I mentioned earlier, in 5 or 10 years, we would see superhuman speech and language models. I think like mid to late 2022 was really when it felt like it's here finally. Like this is kind of the moment we had been waiting for. And I remember pretty distinctly, we were testing an early version of Whisper. And we basically gave it an utterance from one of our users that was a beginning English learner, like a true beginner, strong mispronunciation, very non-native. And 4 people in the room, four humans, were unable to transcribe it, but the model could accurately. So that was a really cool sort of like, oh, the model is now superhuman sort of moment. And I think ChatGPT, GPT 3.5 Turbo, a year later, GPT-4 sort of, coming out, all really helped to transform the Speak product from this more supplemental ASR focused tool to more of a full-featured language tutoring experience, where we could now use the LLM to act like a tutor and give you feedback on what you did wrong in your response to a question or in your performance in a scenario. So I think that was really cool because it felt like a really substantial step towards this vision that we had like always dreamed of when we started the company.
Okay, so when these Gen AI models, including Whisper, came out, you guys jumped on it very quickly. But you mentioned that you guys were already having some success in Korea without these technologies, right? So was the transition here smooth? Was it okay for the Korean users? And
I think it was a very natural extension of the product. And it was something that we had been sort of waiting on in terms of the technology. And we still think about product in the same way to this day, which is how do advances in model intelligence directly unlock these features that were just not possible to build 6 months ago. Every time you have like a step function in the model intelligence frontier, it unlocks new things. So there's kind of this backlog of things that you want to build that you're unable to until the model gets better, right? And it's kind of like a judgment call, I think, as an application layer company of when you just wait versus what are maybe some things that will, progress a lot slower than expected and maybe you have to do it yourself. But in general, I think it was a very smooth transition. It was something that we had been sort of expecting and like waiting for as well for like many years.
I see.
Yeah.
What about that backlog right now? Like what are some features that current models cannot do? And you guys are just waiting for them to get better.
Yeah. Well, so one big area around this is real-time audio. So it's a pretty like hot field right now. With like OpenAI's real-time API, Gemini Live. There's a bunch of models that are now more native multimodal. I would say that there's, at the same time, over the past 12 months, been a lot of progress, but it's also been much slower than expected. Most of the frontier advances in LLMs over the past year have been reasoning, right? And multimodal, I would argue, has been slower than expected. But we are basically, we've been dreaming of and want to build a version of Speak where it's a real-time voice tutor, where you're just talking with it like you would talk with $1,000 an hour human tutor. And it's very natural, very immersive, very low latency. I think that's a thing that's right now on the very edge.
Yep.
There's a bunch of things about that idea that are specific to the language learning domain that make it harder. Like it has to be able to speak multiple languages, switch with the right accent. There's a bunch of stuff like this that make it harder. But I think we'll have something in the next few months that'll be really cool.
Okay. Because I feel like people who are using these end-to-end models just basically using the ChatGPT advanced voice mode.
Yep.
I feel like they would say that they would feel like the tech is already here. Because ChatGPT advanced voice mode can already speak multiple languages in one turn, in one go.
Well, it can sort of do that.
Yeah.
So I would characterize it as it can sort of do that.
Yeah.
And it is pretty fun for 5 or 10 minutes. Like you can ask it, have a conversation with me in Japanese at the A0, A1 level and fix my mistakes, give me pronunciation feedback, etc. And it's a cool experience because it's, sort of live in real time. But you hit a wall very quickly. If you try it, I think it becomes very obvious where even within a single session, it's not very good yet at things like pronunciation feedback and other more sort of nuanced. There's just so many specialized things that you need for language learning specifically. That there's a pretty deep stack of software. It's not just about the model, right? Like the real-time model is maybe the core technology powering it, but the orchestration of other prompts, the UX, how you build the product, how do you coordinate an explanation in real-time audio with something you're showing on screen to back, to reinforce something that's being taught, for example, right? There's a whole sort of complex orchestration of different software components that I think it's still very much frontier. And then also across sessions, right? So something a really good tutor does is it provides structure, like a lesson plan and a curriculum plan that is scaffolded upon itself over many days, weeks, months, years. And that's product, right? That's we think of it as basically language learning is ultimately a pretty sort of complex set of functional skills that takes people years to become good at, right? To become fluent. And you need specialized software. And so we're actually very happy that a lot of people know about things like advanced voice mode and are learning that, hey, you can use this stuff for practicing languages. Because we basically think if you're serious about specializing and maybe practicing a language for, 15, 30 minutes a day, then you really do want the best solution. And that's where we want to be. That's what we want Speak to be.
Okay. Yeah. So from what you said, there seems to be a bunch of engineering problems to be solved. What about the research side? Do you think the model, the model getting better, getting smarter is going to solve most of those problems?
I think it's both. So I think there's there's an incredibly high ceiling for product execution, and there's a lot to build here. So it's not like there's a low ceiling where there's not very much to build and not much software that you even need. And I think it's that in combination with there are just, for the native sort of multimodal pipeline, there are model things that are just not possible yet. Even with really advanced prompting, we've worked pretty closely with OpenAI on the real-time API and have tried pretty hard to push limits. They led our Series B, and we are big fans of OpenAI models. Mostly use them to power speak. Yeah.
I see. What about on the economic side? Economically, does it work already, or do we need it to be a lot more efficient? No.
That's another problem. We have enough scale now that it is something we need to pretty carefully consider. And, we're willing to essentially pay more for the most cutting edge models. And there's a lot on the business side that sort of, you can work around that. But in general, the real-time API is expensive, and it's a lot more expensive than not doing sort of native multimodal models. So the main alternative to using real-time API is you essentially construct what we call the cascaded pipeline, where it's speech recognition, LLM, and then TTS, which is text to speech. And you construct that pipeline yourself. It's less sort of good at understanding things about the audio that are not in the transcript. There's a variety of, there's some pretty big differences between those two types of systems, but fundamentally you're right that the real-time API is a lot more expensive. And it is something that has come down in price, but definitely also slower than we've expected. And for our use case specifically, right? Like ideally we would offer fully unlimited usage because we want people to be practicing and speaking as much as possible. That's kind of the whole ethos of Speak.
Yeah.
But in practice, there are going to have to be some limits.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about, because you guys are mainly using like OpenAI models, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about using those like cheaper, open source alternatives?
Yeah. So I would say that in general, audio is a lot more expensive than text. So, it's like, yeah, the direct answer to your question is yes. I think there's a lot of nuance in terms of also given your sort of financial position as a company, the amount of bandwidth you have to actually work on these sorts of problems. In general, I'm not a big believer in fine tuning. And, I think it's fair to say that even though it's still early, the industry, fine tuning as a service has not become like super, super popular. And I think it's because most people realize that costs are coming down so fast. And in general, you don't really want to spend a lot of time and money on some really fancy fine-tuned model.
And prompting works really well already.
Yeah, because like 6 months later, the next generation of foundation model will come out and will just be better. And that's happened over and over again, right? Like we've seen companies waste over $1 million on some custom model on GPT 3.5 Turbo, and then GPT 4 came out and destroyed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the building for the future kind of topic. So real-time API for sure is like the thing that's happening now, the cutting edge. But what about a few years into the future? Are you is there some model progression that you are looking forward to? Some future features you want to build that cannot build now? Or how about this? Maybe you can tell us like how close Speak is to like the ultimate version of Speak.
95%.
95.
Like,
wow.
I think most of the tech is here, but not all of it.
Okay.
Right. So there are some key gaps, but I think that I've always felt like even if research progress completely stopped everywhere tomorrow, application developers, there's still many years of sort of like useful intelligence and applications that can be built on top of the current models, and people don't fully understand all the power that can be extracted from these models, right? So
100%.
So we view a lot of the tech now as within reach, and it's really about building the right product with the right UX for the right people. It's a big execution challenge.
Yeah, because like LLM already passed the Turing test.
Yeah.
For sure it can be a great English teacher now.
I think so. I think the raw intelligence of these models can take you so far already.
Yeah.
And there is a huge gap though in terms of the product execution and specialization piece, right? Because I still believe in that for various parts of the journey, you need a lot of software, and you need specialized UI for flashcards, for the different types of drills, for the way that you show visuals on screen, for the way that you do review and practice, and so on. There's like a very deep stack of product there.
Okay.
That you need to build.
Yeah, and I would say I feel like you guys picked the perfect topic, to really take advantage of this LLM wave, because English learning is based, because like most of the Gen AI app that do not work now is because of LLM hallucinating. Right? Probabilistic model, and you guys actually benefit from that. The creativity of the model is great for you.
The funny thing is that I think we frankly got a little lucky here. It was always sort of an obvious part of our vision, but it was also, I feel like, much more of a niche thing a few years ago. And now language learning is clearly one of the sort of premier consumer AI application use cases. As an aside, one of the, like, I would say hot topics right now in the AI startup space is, why are there not more consumer AI applications that have really broken through? Like, it all seems to be enterprise, and there really aren't that many, it seems, on the consumer side.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a little bit of a mystery. Obviously, like, every investor is thinking really hard about this and wondering, but I really do think that this is going to be one of the central use cases of LLMs, building the superhuman level AI tutor for everything. You know, like, languages are kind of the first step, but our ambitions with Speak are really thinking of language as the first thing, and then eventually everything in the very long term. But we think that will be one of the most profound consequences of humans building AI.
I want to double click on what you said about consumer AI being super hard.
Yeah.
Because also I am building a AI startup right now, actually, and our first app was it's just a little Chrome extension, but consumer AI product basically, and we launched it last month. Got about like 10,000, our first 10,000 downloads, which is great, but you know, it's hard. Consumer AI is just really hard. That's what we realize. And we've been thinking about this problem, like, why is it so hard? And one possible explanation is that people are afraid of being killed by OpenAI and Google. Like, OpenAI just launched a new feature, killed a bunch of startups. Google just integrate their, AI into their product, killed a bunch of startups. I think that's like one of the fears that people might have. I wonder if you maybe have this concern as well. I mean, you guys are really big now, but ChatGPT has demoed like language learning as their advanced voice mode feature, and also they just launched like this study mode. So are you concerned at all?
I think our view on this is kind of like what I was saying earlier about how I think the use cases that will succeed. So I still believe in applications and in software with UI. I fundamentally don't believe that like a general purpose assistant that is super, super smart will solve everything. I do think that you need a sort of specialized vertical use case and domain that has a high ceiling for project execution and a lot of specialization needed, which I think learning and language learning do have. We also have a whole thing around pedagogy where we have kind of reinvented basically how we teach fluency from a ground up, from the ground up. We call that the Speak method. It's very focused on teaching you patterns and chunks that you put together, drill until it's automatic, and then you apply in these real sort of role play like situations, and then suddenly you're kind of micro fluent in a specific scenario, and that turns out to just work really well and be super gratifying. But I think you want to pick an application here where you need that sort of specialization. That's how I think about it. Yeah. And speaking more generally maybe about consumer AI, one of the things that has always been true, but maybe like even more so now, is the fundamentals matter. Like, you need to solve the real problem that people have, right? Like, so many apps that I see these days it's more model first than sort of user first, if you will. And what happens is you don't get true PMF. You might build something shiny and then you have tire kickers that come check it out because it's like fancy and it looks cool for the first day, but then your retention goes to 0 and everyone leaves. And that happens a lot, right? So I think, part of what we're very convinced about is that we have an extremely strong vision around what we're trying to solve here. And we've been doing this for long enough that I think we have a lot of discipline around actually approaching things from a user-facing point of view and using intelligence and using these models and code in general as more of a means to an end, right? It's more like a tool to achieve a product capability, to unlock a product capability, but it's a tool.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to when you guys first started to integrate Whisper and, GPT models into your product. Was there any, challenges or, something unexpected?
Yeah. Those were some crazy early days. So I would say, if you're developing apps built on top of these LMs in sort of late 2022, late 2023, you'll remember that like one of the things that people were so scared about, so careful about, was basically safety, right? That people would use these LMs for inappropriate purposes, right?
Okay.
Whether it's for building bombs or whatever, right? So there was just a lot of like almost panic in hindsight in the zeitgeist around making sure that you had all the proper warnings in moderation systems, and you would shut down conversations that were going in the wrong direction and so on. And there's been so much progress that has been made on that problem over, like a year afterwards. So that was a whole thing where when we launched our first major sort of AI roleplay feature, that was essentially like an LLM powered audio chat where you could practice English in a variety of these functional scenarios.
Yeah.
We had to put in a lot of things on the product side around moderation and safety. And then it felt like what seemed like, maybe 6 months later, the expectations had totally changed. And I feel like a lot of the, this is all new technology, of course, right? But the rate of evolution of these norms and of the patterns that both developers and users expected just changed so fast. So that was kind of like whiplash, sort of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So that's, one obvious example that comes to mind.
Okay. During the early days, were there a lot of people like trying to break your system, like trying to stress test it, like push the limits?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that it was necessarily adversarial, like they were intentionally trying to break it, but there were definitely people that were creating custom scenarios to practice, their English that you can imagine, given a custom scenario setup, it was definitely like, maybe we were naive, but it was definitely not what we were expecting. And, I think that was, things have settled down quite a bit just because these types of like LLM chat products have gotten so popular, globally popular. And I think that the average user is now much more familiar with them and sort of how to use them, what to expect, and so on.
Okay.
So the norms have shifted a lot, but in the early days, it felt like the Wild West. It was crazy.
Okay. And you said that you guys had to build a lot of guardrails on top of the model?
A lot of guardrails, a lot of like a bunch of moderation systems that were very sensitive, that were way too sensitive in hindsight. And then we had to rip them out.
I see.
Tweak them constantly. It was like sort of a big headache, actually.
I see. Also, because like base model has gotten pretty good at, detecting, malicious activity.
And there's been so much post-training of these models now that they're very good at refusals. Yeah. And just like, I won't talk about that. And then redirecting the conversation. Or just shutting down the conversation. So now you can rely on the model to do most of it for you.
So not many guardrails are needed. These models work perfectly fine themselves. But
I would say generally. Yeah.
But you guys probably will just like what you said about custom UIs and stuff. There's definitely a layer of a lot of customization on top of these models that you guys build, right? What would you say are some of the things that you built that really worked? The most important components, maybe, of this?
I would classify that into product specialization. So one of the really exciting things about GPT-4 was that it was the first model that was capable of giving quite good multilingual feedback. And so if you were, no matter what your native language was, if you were learning English, it could give you feedback on the mistake you made, like a tutor that spoke your native language, right? So the feedback would be in Korean, Japanese, whatever language was your native language. We basically built our AI roleplay lessons as an audio chat in these fully custom scenarios where we would use GPT-4 to basically evaluate what the user was saying and give you feedback like a real human tutor would. And that worked really well. It was just a super cool feature. It really sort of showed off the power of the LLM, but was also constrained enough in the product context that it felt really useful and very timely. It wasn't easy to pull off. Another thing that was crazy initially was when GPT-4 first came out, we were actually building we were one of the first companies with access to the early alpha and building product on top of it when it was still on very much alpha infrastructure. So there were super severe rate limits, and we had to actually run fire drills and fully redesign things in the product at the very last minute to accommodate capacity constraints. Oh my God, it's all coming back now. That was a lot of work, and it all happened so fast as well. So the rate of change, I think, is another hallmark of AI software.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also the cost reduction in these APIs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that because it happens so fast, almost every few months the price gets cut in half or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about this, and how do you take advantage of this? And do you increase the credits of your users? Do you adjust the prices of your subscription?
Yeah. So we like to keep things simple. I think that's kind of a philosophy that pervades both the product and also the technical side. And our pricing model is just a simple monthly or annual subscription. We have a few tiers now, where the highest tier has much more usage and it's mostly unlimited. In general, I think that cost reduction is a big trend that you should basically just always bet on and build toward that. You can basically count on the price per token of a frontier model dropping by almost 90% every 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
That's insane, right? So we definitely built for the future in that way. And as we scaled, doing cost models and developing a pretty intuitive sense for how much features would cost was something that we had to get pretty good at necessarily. I think that's pretty important if you want to build a long-term enduring sort of software business here. I just think that's one of the core skills that you need to get pretty good at. In general, I think, it's, the pace is mind-boggling. I agree. Price changes happen all the time. It's hard to keep track of course, but the general trend is that everything is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, which is awesome for us.
And how do you actually build for that? Are you saying that you're willing to maybe burn more money in the in the first phase, expecting it to?
Yeah, you have to be pretty dynamic about it. And of course, I think this changes depending on your scale and your situation as a company. But you can do things for a given product feature, the best version of it might be powered by the most expensive frontier model. But it might still work, but just slightly less well with kind of the workhorse model that is a little cheaper. You might meter that. You might give different versions of that to different users depending on their subscription tier and the health of your system and so on. So we ended up building a bunch of software here that was basically a fully dynamic sort of request routing system where we could essentially on a per prompt basis redirect it to different sort of models depending on almost arbitrary variables. That's one specific example of a technical solution where you can design, you can kind of design your AI system to be very flexible in this way and not be locked into any specific model type. And I think also, just more from the product strategy point of view, I think we always think about, okay, what are the things that are almost on deck in terms of product features, but not quite, either due to capabilities or price. And usually those two things are linked, right? Because usually the best capabilities are also the most expensive.
Yep.
And then, that comes down over time. And it's like, oh, okay, now, like you can calculate some threshold under which it's cheap enough. Now we're a go, right? Let's build it and then launch it.
I feel like most of the successful AI apps right now, have this mindset when they're building the first version of their products. Like you guys, also like Cursor, all those coding tools, when they release their MVP, it doesn't work because like the underlying model is not good enough, and the cost reduction is not there yet. Economically, it doesn't make sense. But after a year or so, things starts to work, and then they already have like a UI, built out. They can just launch it and it just works.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's no universally applicable rule here. It's a very dynamic environment, and you have to be agile on the product side. And as an example, pricing is changing all the time, right? It's falling, there's new models, it's kind of mind-boggling. So in general, the pattern that a lot of products, including the biggest ones, have settled on is like silent caps, where so let's say you pay monthly for some AI product, and then you use it a lot, and you're using a lot of tokens, and you're exceeding some internal token budget that the company wants to give you. Usually you don't hit a hard wall where you get like a paywall and like, sorry, you can't use the features anymore. Usually there's like a pretty subtle design or UX thing that you can do around how maybe the AI agent that you're talking to sort of starts to shut down the conversations faster. Or, it's like very dependent on the product design, but it's more like a silent cap so that there's a lot more flexibility in what you do once the models become cheaper.
I see. And one trend that I'm seeing right now in the coding AI space is things start to get more expensive, because like I feel like maybe like a year ago or something like that, I just cannot believe they're offering at those kind of products at that kind of price. Things are just looking at their subscription, I feel like they're definitely losing money, and the model providers that provides the API are probably losing money providing API as well. So it's just like for those coding products, like the cost of it is way above their price. And the value they provide is like super high. And I feel like maybe in the past couple months, people are starting to think that, oh, maybe this is not sustainable. They start to change their pricing scheme, make it more like credit-based and stuff like that. Are you seeing the same thing in your sector?
Not to that much of an extent. I don't have any inside information on gross margins for code gen products, but there's a lot of rumors that they're very bad, right? They're like very negative. And yes, you can have a single developer spin up 100 agents, right? And use tens of thousands of dollars worth of tokens for a single person. It's like theoretically not capped. What we do in our domain is a little bit more theoretically capped. And maybe one way to think about the sort of cost ceiling here is if you had a 24/7 real-time tutor, how much would that cost if it literally ran for the entire month, 24/7, and you were using it 24/7, right? Like, sure, you can have stuff running in the background for analysis, but in general, it kind of feels like you're not going to be using 10x more than that, right? So we have a very healthy gross margin. Is something that we pay attention to. There are special circumstances where we're willing to sacrifice that for really cutting edge models, really cool product features, planning for the price coming down. But our intention is very much to build Speak to be a very long-term important company. So it's something that we do care about a lot.
You guys, like we discussed just now, you guys picked the perfect topic in this Gen AI era, and you guys picked it, way back. So very, visionary there. I feel like there's a lot of people like me just looking for good opportunities, good products to build. How do we, find a good topic, and, how do we find product market fit, you think?
I think it's important to think about the fundamentals here, like I mentioned earlier. I think you have to really identify a pain point in a user problem that you're solving and have a point of view on how the model is a tool that helps you unlock a new product solution. I personally believe that there is so much potential in these models that we have yet to unlock, even if all research stopped tomorrow. And I think that there is so much software to build. There is so much value to unlock by building the right productization of these models, right? And there's still a long way for these models to go, right? So in general, there's a lot of UX and design solutions where you can build something useful and get around some of the deficiencies of these products and be very thoughtful about how do you actually like make something useful for the end user that is solving a real problem in their life, right? You can't rely on the model too much. Like it should be at the core if you're building something AI native. But you still need to think so hard about the exact form of the product and the problem that you're solving. That's always been true, but I feel like for some reason it's just something that a lot of entrepreneurs are, like almost missing because they're too enamored by these new model capabilities.
Basically, just, they start from the model and, understanding its capability, and then, start to think about what can I use this capability, like in which areas can I apply this to? But what you're saying is you should start from the customers, like the actual pain points. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I don't think that it's an either or like that. I do think you need to be extraordinarily attuned to the capabilities of these frontier models and what exactly is reasonable to achieve versus not achieve, right? And I think
For sure.
it is true that as the models get better, more product possibilities are unlocked, right? But my sort of high-level point is really that you have to approach things from a user-first point of view, like almost always.
Because I feel like most of the people that are in this game right now, they are really, for example, the Google Nano Banana that just came out.
Yeah.
When a model like that comes out, people will start to think, there's a bunch of things like image app you can build with this.
Yeah.
Starting from the capability of the model, and not really taking into account what exactly is a pain point they're solving.
I think that is actually a great example because it's very recent. It is clear that Nano Banana was a pretty big step forward in many aspects of image gen, right? Like frankly, its ability to do things like have a sort of internal world model and rotate objects and, compose objects into the same scene. That has never been seen before, right? Clearly way better than ChatGPT. Maybe the last step forward was like the ChatGPT, like Miyazaki moment, right? Like all the Studio Ghibli stuff that went super viral. I definitely agree that Nano Banana is way better in a lot of ways that are super flashy and really easy to get excited about. But also at the same time, it's nowhere near perfect. I was playing with it just yesterday and I was trying to give it a bunch of specific instructions and it followed like half my instructions, right? Like not even 75%. So there's still clearly a long ways to go. And I think that it would be really tempting to build a product around some of these new capabilities because you just think they're so cool and you want to bring them to users. And it might even work for the first week with your users because your users also think that they're cool. But then there's no like enduring value. There's no enduring PMF after that. Obviously, I don't have all the answers, but I think, I think that's like actually a pretty good example. Yeah.
So how did Speak really find PMF, would you say?
Through a lot of pain. I mean, it took us years. I think that was a little bit unusual.
The first time you found PMF was in Korea, right?
Yeah.
The Korean market.
Yeah. I mean, we launched the Speak app like 3 times. And I think when we launched the Korea version in late 2019, we really repackaged the whole way that we do content. And we introduced the concept of a course and curriculum on Rails and a lot of like specific product design decisions that we had learned over the past few years. So it really was just a combination of like 1,000 different learnings that were quite painful to arrive at the specific sort of like form factor and functionality of a product that people wanted and like solved a core user need, which is that it was extremely annoying and inaccessible to practice speaking English out loud and move towards fluency. But it was a huge need, right? So we built one of the first apps in the market that gave people an outlet to speak in the comfort and privacy of their own home, where they wouldn't be worried about making mistakes and embarrassing themselves. So it was almost like a playground or a private gym for speaking, right? And that was an idea that resonated. The specific form factor for how the home screen of the app worked and how the course worked was something that we had iterated on a lot through blood, sweat, and tears. So I don't think it was luck. I think it was like, certainly that was non-zero, but we put together a lot of learnings.
And back then, when you guys found product market fit, were you guys, satisfied by where this is going? Because like you guys started Speak with the vision of, building an AI, English, not just English, but language learning app, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, tech didn't really work like that.
Yeah.
So, what was it like a means for you guys to, survive until like the AI comes, or,
I think we knew that we hadn't yet sort of hit that inflection point in terms of speech, and we knew there was a lot more to come. And it was also easy to tell because we would always benchmark our product against what is the best human tutor able to do, right? And it's, obviously there's a huge gap. There still is today, right? There's a lot. So I think there, it wasn't like we were waiting. There was still a lot of specific stuff to figure out around the market and around our specific users and how they wanted to learn. But we always knew that once the technology arrived, it would sort of usher in like the next phase of the master plan, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. So right now, of course, Gen AI is heavily used in Speaks app, but what about internally, like in your company? Are you guys using, I would assume you guys are probably using AI to help you code.
Of course.
And what about like other stuff like content marketing?
All of it. We try to infuse AI in everything that we do. We're an AI native product, AI native company. Certainly like on the engineering team, we're in full swing. I push it pretty hard. I think it is basically table stakes these days. Same thing, for example, on the growth and growth and marketing teams. We do a lot of experimentation using AI to make creatives, even in our day-to-day sort of operational processes. We use AI to help us, clarify documents, do rubber ducking, do planning, all of that. And I think that it's definitely kind of the default expectation that if you're trying to solve some sort of problem, you're involving AI in the loop. Like that's just like it feels so obvious to me.
Okay. Yeah, I was really surprised when I think it was Jenny from your marketing team that asked me if she can put out a video, because like I also partnered with Speak on some of my my past videos, and she use AI to turn my video into speaking Thai language or something like that.
Yeah.
And then she asked me if I can use this video to make an ad in Thailand. I was like, that's the first time someone really asked me about that, and it was actually a while back, so it was very early.
Yeah, we're constantly playing with these tools, sharing them internally.
Yeah.
It's a highly encouraged thing, and definitely like a big part of the culture that we're trying to build. And I think it also makes it fun to feel like you're kind of on the bleeding edge here. And we very much sort of not just encourage, but also expect people to be very forward-looking here. And I think that's one of the really cool things I think about working somewhere like Speak. Because in a lot of companies, it's more about like restrictions, right? On what you cannot do. And I'm much more interested in asking what you can do and really pushing that as far as it can go.
Okay. So like from your internal use of coding, we can pretty much understand like, the frontier of like AI assisted code programming. So maybe tell us, what tool do you guys use? Do you guys use Cursor or?
We use Cursor, we use Devin, we use OpenAI Codex CLI, Claude Code, sort of all of it. And I think these tools are also changing and evolving so fast.
Yeah. Like
OpenAI Codex, sorry to OpenAI, but it was not very good when it first launched. But now with GPT-5, it's incredible. It's actually now the best.
Oh, okay.
We think it's better than Claude Code. So it's something that I think you just need to have a culture of constantly testing. And I do think that we still care a lot about making sure there's a human reviewing every single line of code that goes into production. But it is definitely a mindset thing, right? Like, I think everybody wants to be on the forefront and to do cool things with these tools. But sometimes, like a lot of times it takes training. It takes a lot of effort in prompting and setting up the repo, setting up the environment, doing some of the rote work to get these agents working better. So we try pretty hard to do the details and the little things as well to make the agents actually like more able to operate with the right context and the right repos and so on.
So there's some scaffolding that you guys have to build.
Things work out of the box, but they work significantly better when you put in some effort to do some scaffolding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you guys hiring junior engineers nowadays?
Yeah. I would say that we're hiring pretty broadly across many technical roles. We're hiring across all levels, I would say. And we have hired a bunch of, our overall team is still, pretty small, but we are hiring as fast as possible, and we are hiring junior engineers. And I think the important thing is that you're super AI pilled, if you will, and are able to basically show that you're on the forefront here and actually use and understand these tools. Fewer people than you would expect are able to do that. And in a startup like Speak, where there's just always unlimited things that we want to build and not enough people to build them, one of the traits that we really highly value is just kind of, what we call the founder mentality, right? This sense of agency, sense of ownership. That is kind of the only way to succeed in an environment like Speak is, where there's quite a bit of ambiguity. We just need all hands on deck to really drive forward initiatives. So we need people that are, able to do that.
And did your expectation towards junior engineer change after, these coding tools? Because a lot of people are saying just knowing how to write code is not good enough anymore. You need to have more high level system design thinking and all that.
Yeah. I don't think that applies to only junior engineers, though. I think it's for the whole industry, expectations are rising across the board with these tools. I think that's just the reality. There is a drive for efficiency. People are expected to be able to get leverage out of these tools. Management layers are being ripped out. Managers are expected to also increasingly write code on the side. You see this in bank companies as well. And yeah, that is definitely a pretty strong industry trend, I would say.
Okay.
Senior engineering managers are a little bit of a dying role almost, right? It's right because everything's becoming flattened, right? So either you're a line manager who's also very technical, can probably also contribute to the code base on the side, or at least like use it, coding agents, or you're a pretty senior director that has a lot of reports that are line managers, right? There's nothing really in between anymore. And I feel like that's a trend we're seeing like pretty broadly across the industry.
So what advice would you give to maybe like college students that are studying CS right now, or even like thinking if they should study CS?
I mean, from my point of view, we still struggle to hire people, right? We are hiring furiously as fast as we can. And we are struggling to find people that are just great builders of AI products. I think those skills will continue to be valuable. So I guess my direct advice would be, I think CS is still valuable. I think the ability to build things is like, I would index more on that than the ability to like understand CS theory. And, it is, I don't know if shocking is the right word, but it is pretty surprising how many sort of early career or like, fresh grads I talk to that just don't know how to build things. They don't really know what an API is. And so I think you need to be a good builder. You need to be on the forefront of the tools and really like show to companies that you can bring in some of this culture. Everybody's looking for it, like very desperately.
Okay.
In fact.
So just start building something on the side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
So last question before you go. Can you tell us like what is your maybe how do I phrase it? Like what's your mindset right now being at the forefront of AI and being in San Francisco all the time? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking?
So at this point, Speak is 7 to 8 years old, and it's actually quite a while into our journey. And I think, maybe the first thing that comes to mind is, without a question, this is the most energizing, exciting, frantic time in company history. Yeah. By a lot. Right? Things are going like this. I mean, obviously we're growing really fast and have been every year for the past few years and continue to do so. But it essentially finally feels like, almost all of the tech that we were dreaming of is within reach to build this superhuman AI tutor. That's just really exciting. And it's a great reason to wake up in the morning, and like work really hard. Because it feels really important. Like it feels like important work. And what we're doing is working. I think the team that we're assembling is special. I think in general, living in San Francisco and sort of having our headquarters in San Francisco as well is really energizing. We work hybrid, but several days a week in person, and it's just fun to be building stuff with people like on whiteboards in person, side by side. I think that's just like so energizing and so fun.
Yeah, totally agree on how exciting AI is, but does it give you also anxiety sometimes?
Totally. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true of everybody that, like maybe especially on the consumer side, that like, oh, ChatGPT or Gemini might build it or whatever. And I think, it's fair to say that, yes, the OpenAI team is extremely formidable, but also they can't do everything, right? Like we've seen their lead on coding agents slip significantly, over the past like 2 years. And that's kind of a consequence of them being just like a big consumer focused company versus something like Anthropic, for example. I tend to, just kind of like stick to the principles and not worry about that too much. I think it, like there's definitely AI anxiety, perhaps over the past 6 months with the like slightly more incremental slowing progress in terms of scaling these models. Some of the more existential stuff has maybe gone away a little bit. But I think overall fundamentally I'm a techno optimist, right? Like I believe in the power of technology to solve human problems and help people and make the world better. And it feels like we've invented the most powerful technology in the history of humanity. And being at the sort of center of that whole hurricane is very meaningful and super exciting, super fun.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with AI? Like, are you on Twitter all the time, X all the time, or?
Unfortunately, I am on X all the time. I'm a little bit addicted. It's actually like, I think, at the same time, it's a little bit of a problem, but I also find it to be, a good pulse on the sort of zeitgeist, if you will. I try to spend a fair amount of time specifically in our domains around audio and voice, keeping up to date on the newest models, releases, papers, trying stuff out myself. But yeah, it is really hard.
Okay.
It's so fast.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much. This is great.